So, Frozen 2 is deeply, extremely weird. I'm just gonna put it really harshly to start out. I understand it's been 6 years between movies, and this is an animated movie. I have an incomplete understanding of animated movies, but I do know that they take a very, very long time. So this isn't a case of, wow, you had 6 years to write a movie and this is what you came up with. It's more a case of like, you had 1 year to write this movie and then your first 12 pitches were rejected in part or in full. They were probably actively editing the story while it was in the process of being recorded and animated, and then they're kind of at the mercy of like which scenes are already done, because you have to keep those, especially the most expensive ones, and ultimately you're probably coming up on the deadline and just scrambling to fit whatever you do already have into some semblance of a movie. But to be harsh, with a movie so huge and highly anticipated, it's just a bit disappointing to get a finished product that feels like someone ran up on a deadline and had a bunch of pieces that didn't really work or fit together, so they just hurriedly smushed them into something vaguely passable. Alright, spoiler warning, I'm gonna get into some specific things, so spoilers for the whole movie. Frozen 2 introduces this idea of spirits, the spirits of the 4 elements, and it's cool, but also the way they did it, it doesn't make any sense. So there's this ancient symbol representing the 4 elements: earth, fire, water, wind, and then there's a 5th thing in the middle, presumably the avatar. If each of the elements is a creature, the obvious assumption is that Elsa is the water one because she controls ice, and in Frozen 2 she does some stuff that's just with water. So you're like, okay, she's water. And maybe there are cool looking magical girls for each of the other elements, and then Disney can sell pretty dolls of them and like maybe do an additional movie covering each one or something. And it also kind of feels like if Disney is setting up any twist, it's that Elsa is in fact the 5th spirit and she can control all the elements, not just ice/water. This is further reinforced by Elsa meeting a magical horse made of water, so you're like, okay, that's the water spirit. Elsa is the 5th one. But here's how it shakes out as far as I could tell. The water spirit is the magical horse. I have it behind me. It can control water, but not ice, I don't think. It can break apart into just being water, a la Alex Mack, but it can also manifest as a horse. But the horse is made of water. It's not like a real horse made of horse skin. The fire spirit is a little lizard. It can appear as just fire, a lizard that's on fire, or a lizard, and it's just a normal lizard when it's like that, with lizard skin. The wind spirit is just the actual wind, and it has no physical form, so it's not a creature. It just is the wind, but it has a personality. The earth spirit is kind of unclear, but it appears to be these big rock giants, even though there's like 20 of them. So I guess it's just all 20 of these guys. They're made of rocks, but they don't seem to actually even be able to control the earth so much as just pick up rocks and throw them. And then the 5th spirit is Elsa, a human woman who can control the same things as the water spirit and ice, but nothing else. To make things more confusing, the quest starts because Elsa, in her own words, accidentally wakes up the spirits of the dark forest. These spirits attack Arendelle by messing up the water, fire, wind, and earth. These spirits are not the 4 spirits of the elements that I previously mentioned. The rock giants, lizard, and water horse were not present. The jury's still out on whether the wind spirit was there because it's invisible and just looks like the wind. But I think those spirits weren't present because they couldn't have been present because they were trapped in the dark forest by the mist that doesn't let anything in or out. So they weren't responsible for the attack on Arendelle. So I guess those 4 spirits are the spirits of the elements, but there are also separate spirits of the dark forest which also control each of those elements. It makes no sense. So that's all I have to say about that, I guess. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Again, it just kind of feels like an unexamined first draft. And like there are things in Disney princess movies that don't make sense all the time, and I don't care about those. Like, you know how Anna and Elsa left all of their subjects on a cliffside with no food, water, or shelter. You'll be safe here. Great, thanks guys. Or the fact that suddenly the girls are in different outfits when they go on their adventure, even though they fled the castle in the middle of the night, and like I didn't see them pack a suitcase. But like that kind of stuff, it's just nitpicking. It doesn't matter that much. Maybe they shopped on the way. I don't really care. But this elemental spirit stuff, it's kind of like what the movie is about. There isn't a lot of character development, so I think kind of the whole purpose of Frozen 2 is to expand the lore of their universe. And if that's the thing you're bringing to the table, you really have to lock it down. Instead, it was just really vague. And if anything, it raised more questions. But here's my biggest beef with this movie is that Frozen is supposed to be about sisters, and Elsa and Anna barely interact. You get one scene at the beginning where Elsa can't sleep and Anna is comforting her, and it's like a sweet sister moment. Then they're just hanging out as a group, and pretty much all the character interactions are just Anna and Kristoff. A quest or road trip movie is usually great, like a great opportunity for just team building and bonding all around, but this isn't even really a quest movie. They set out on the wagon, walk into the forest, and then 5 minutes later just immediately run into all the people that live in the forest and all the old Arendellian soldiers at the same time in the same scene. Like, there isn't that much of an impression of grandness and mystery in this forest. Like, for all I know, it's 5 acres of land. Then later they set out again and very quickly find their parents shipwrecked. There's only one scene of them walking. It seems like they found it in 5 minutes. When I saw the shipwreck, I was immediately like, okay, this can go one of two ways. Either their parents aren't in there, suggesting that they're still alive, or, my favorite, these princesses are about to find the skeletons of their parents. Either one is going to be high drama, so I'm admittedly pretty excited to see it play out. But no, the magical mist conveniently kept all of the skeletons out of the movie. Those cowards. Then for the whole, last half of the movie, Elsa and Anna are just separated. Elsa tricks Anna and throws her down a hillside in an ice canoe at 50 miles an hour. She could have straight up killed her, and Anna is furious, but this fury is never really addressed. I mean, she talks about it to Olaf, but she never hashes it out with Elsa. Worst of all, the narrative suggests that Elsa doing this thing and pushing Anna away was actually the correct choice. If she hadn't ditched her to go on the dangerous mission to the ice caves, she never would have found out about Arendelle's past and how to break the curse on the lands. She gets frozen as a consequence of obtaining this information, but it's not like a morality thing. The message wasn't that Elsa shouldn't have gone here or that it was dangerous, selfish, reckless, a fool's errand. It was that Elsa was a hero for unwittingly sacrificing herself for this intel. So, sidebar, I'd kind of like to point out how much ominous imagery there is around the voice that's calling Elsa. It's calling her out directly into a raging ocean, and in Into the Unknown, she specifically refers to it as a siren. A siren isn't just a thing that tempts you because it has something really cool to show you. It's a thing that tempts you in order to kill you. When she gets in the water, she's eventually carried off to the ice cave island by a magical water horse. That's a lot like a Kelpie, the mythical water horse creature that tries to tempt people into climbing onto its back. Again, not because it has something cool to show them. And then there's the lullaby their mom sings them as kids, which ends with an ominous warning about drowning if you go too deep. And then we get to Show Yourself, which was one of the 2 songs that I really liked in the movie. But the actual revelation Elsa has in the cave really rubs me the wrong way. Elsa is looking for answers and someone to tell her why she is the way she is. And the musical number she has in the cave and the vision and whatever is basically it's just you. Trust in yourself. The power is in you. You are all you need. It would be very empowering under some circumstances, but for Elsa, it's all wrong. She specifically says earlier in the movie that she's hoping the voice is someone like her. She wants answers and community. And this song is triumphantly good news, Elsa. There is no answer, and there is no one like you. You're really super powerful, Elsa. You have no equal. You do have a horse, a lizard, the wind, and these 20 guys. And that's that. And this is framed as some beautiful, triumphant revelation. But think about Frozen 1 for just 1/2 of a second. In Let It Go, Elsa is excited because she's embracing who she is. But at the beginning of the movie, she mistakenly believes that in order to do that, she has to leave behind everybody she knows and loves and go be a glamorous, bedazzled hermit in an ice castle on a mountain. And the resolution to that story is no, Elsa, don't do that very weird thing. You can embrace who you are and also find acceptance from the people who love you. And Frozen 2 ends with Elsa embracing her powers, leaving behind everyone she knows and loves, and going to become a glamorous, bedazzled hermit horse girl in the forest. And I guess she'll visit sometimes, so That's growth. I mean, she'll at least visit for board game nights and use Wind Instant Messenger, so like that's something. But also she's so directionless now. There's no real sense that the forest or nature or whatever needed her there to function. I kind of get the sense that in an early draft, Elsa was going to go be the queen of the forest people. Like they had some line about how their mother was from one of their oldest families, which was maybe like a queen or a chief, and she was like their lost princess or something. And then maybe somebody at Disney was like, hey, this is a self-sufficient, non-white tribe of indigenous people in a forest, and Elsa is like as white as a person can possibly be without being a ghost. So like maybe the optics of that are not ideal. But then it's like, what is Elsa even doing out there? Just riding her horse around? It doesn't seem like they're facing any particular danger that she has to restore balance to. So she's not a superhero. She's not their queen. So what? What does this amount to? That Elsa just has a wealthy family who will support her as she takes a gap year? There's no growth here for any of the characters. There are changes to the status quo at the end, but that is not the same thing as character growth. At the end of the movie, Anna is queen, and Elsa, I don't know, wears her hair down, but there were no lessons learned. I mean, I guess Elsa learned that she apparently didn't want to be queen, even though she had always seemed like a benevolent ruler who was okay with the responsibility. Like, she only seemed to not like it in Frozen 1 because of the stress of not being able to keep her powers concealed, but that's not a problem anymore. Kristoff's whole character conflict is that he needs to propose, which I guess is daunting, but it's not really a more interesting character beat than someone studying for a challenging exam that they have to get a good grade on. There's this brief moment when Anna leaves him behind to follow Elsa, and he sings a sad song about it. I kind of thought going in his character conflict that they were leading up to was going to be like an insecurity that he was always going to be second to Elsa in Anna's life, but that's not really what's addressed. His song is kind of just expressing fear that Anna is going to break up with him, and she's not going to, so that's fine. That worked itself out, I guess. And then he disappears for a lot of the movie, and then he comes back at the end and says to Anna that he's confident their relationship is strong, and then he proposes. So that's that. I don't know when he had this growth moment, but okay, maybe someday we'll get Frozen 1.5, and it'll just show Kristoff going to therapy or something. Anna learned that Arendelle had this whole revisionist history regarding their interactions with the forest people, and that her grandfather was a bad man. But that hadn't really been a quality of her character that needed resolving. There was no indication that she had any particular distrust for the supposedly evil forest people. She loves Arendelle and the subjects in it just kind of as people that she's known her whole life and likes on a personal level, but there's no indication of like a fierce patriotism for Arendelle and the idea of a great nation that can do no wrong. It's not like the princesses hear that bedtime story at the beginning and go, someday we'll have our revenge. They're just like, whoa, I loved that story. That was so cool and epic, which admittedly is a very insensitive response to that story. And then when they go to the forest, it takes all of one conversation for them to just trust and like the forest people. So yeah, no real prejudice there. And the girl's grandfather was such a non-character. We don't feel any shock or betrayal at the revelation that he's evil because he's just some guy that the audience doesn't know and that none of the living characters even met before he died. You're not even given the sense that the girls had any particular admiration for the general idea of their grandfather, like as a kind patriarch or a fondly remembered ruler. He's just a guy that we hear a brief story about at the beginning. I think the writers might have thought this would be akin to the Hans twist, but it's just not. Even the reveal that their mom was from the forest and saved their dad as a kid, like, so what? What does that mean for anyone? I guess they have a new cultural heritage to learn about, like somebody getting fun 23andMe results in the mail. That's about it. This doesn't cast anything we knew about the mom in a new light or alter our opinions of her. It was such a non-twist that it might as well have just not been a twist. It even could have just been in the story the dad told them at the beginning. Like, and then your mother saved me, and she went with me to Arendelle, and we fell in love. And that would change absolutely nothing about the way the story unfolded from there. The weirdest thing about the story was the finality of it all. Frozen is such a big movie, like, culturally and financially, and seems to have such legitimately good franchise potential, especially after you send them out into the world and bring in other magical creatures. You could churn out endless Frozen movies or a Frozen TV series if you just introduced interesting villains or obstacles or mysteries to solve, but they seem so uninterested in exploring that in any way. But the emotional core of the story was the sisters, and now Anna is queen, so even if Elsa goes out adventuring, they're splitting the team up. And there wasn't any hook to imply that there was an unresolved threat out there or any loose ends, not even as an after-credit stinger. So anyway, if you want to settle in for a minute, I can tell you how I thought this might go. With musicals, I can never resist having a soundtrack listen, even though I know I shouldn't and it will spoil the story, so that's how it went with this one. I could immediately tell that the last two songs were the ones with spoilers, so I just kind of skimmed them and I didn't give a second listen, and because of that, they gave me this weird false impression of how I thought the story was going to go, and I wish that it had happened. So let's go through that. So you have Show Yourself, in which Elsa is looking for and ultimately finds answers with a second voice singing back to her. Then, immediately following it, you have The Next Right Thing, which is a song about Anna being extremely devastated that someone is gone from her life. Someone she has always trusted and followed, and now can no longer follow, either literally or figuratively. A lot of people started some early speculation that this meant Elsa would die or Kristoff would die. But I actually kind of thought that maybe Elsa would become evil. Not permanently evil, but like temporarily misguidedly evil, and I still wish that had happened. So at the beginning of the movie, Elsa is hearing this mysterious siren call and wants to seek it out. In her introductory scene, she is standing on this balcony, the queen overseeing her kingdom, and she's hearing this voice that no one else hears. One of her subjects comes up behind her and startles her, causing her to shoot giant spears of terrifying ice at the balcony railing. So for anyone who's keeping score, we have a queen who is jumpy, hearing things, and has powers that can kill you. We don't usually love that. Anna is immediately skeptical that this voice is good. Her powers can feel that it's good, so she's just trusting her mysterious magical powers over Anna's intuition. Again, the film we got confirms that this was the correct thing to do. There's a line in one of the trailers, which was very misleading. I believe it did not appear anywhere in the final movie, where the wise troll says, "Magic is very alluring. Without you, she may lose herself to it."
Magic is very alluring. Without you, she may lose herself to it.
Anna even has a line in the movie when she's arguing that she should go with Elsa, that there's a line in the lullaby that says, "Go too far and you'll be drowned." She literally yells at Elsa, "Who will stop you from going too far?" But Elsa just sends her away, shutting her out. Again, the exact thing that she learned not to do in the first movie. So I imagined this story being about Elsa meeting some kind of corrupting influence, be that a evil magical force or a specific person, whatever. Maybe it's this lady who didn't have anything to do in the story, or this lady who didn't have anything to do in the story, or this guy who talked to Kristoff one time about reindeer, or maybe it's some new character. Regardless, I am going to name my character Villainous. Don't worry, I trust her. Maybe this character meets Elsa early in her journey and tells her the story of the 5 spirits. Maybe they urge her to continue to follow the voice. Maybe this is the character Elsa remarks to about, "How come lullabies always have some ominous warning at the end?" And Villainous says, "Well, the world is dangerous and children are curious." Maybe Villainous noticed Anna yelling at Elsa for running into the fire, and they have a conversation where she gently validates Elsa's feelings that Anna is cramping her style. She can also insinuate that that's just one of the burdens of having amazing powers. People won't understand and they'll try to control you. That's definitely what Elsa's parents were doing with all the gloves and stuff, so that obviously resonates with Elsa. So yeah, maybe that's what Anna's trying to do now. But Villainous seems really nice, and she's nice to Anna. They have like a one-on-one conversation. Villainous loans her some of her cold weather clothes, like the fur-lined cape and hat, because we love a costume change. And you know, unlike Elsa, Anna can actually feel the cold up north. Oh, also when the girls find out that their mother was from the forest originally, Anna can have some line like, "I don't understand, how could she leave her people behind forever?" She's on the right track, but you can basically just put a pin in that until Frozen 3 because I'm not touching it today. Anyway, then the thing happens where Elsa wants to cross the dangerous ocean and Anna tries to stop her, and and Elsa sends her away in the murder canoe, but maybe they can have more of an argument first, which brings up some of the issues I've been discussing. Elsa doesn't need Anna's help. Anna's just jealous. She's trying to control her, etc., etc. Ah, God, that was so violent. And then Elsa leaves across the ocean to the ice caves, and the whole scene plays out basically identically to how it already does in the movie. That's good news because in my imagination, they're like, hey, we can't take out that scene. It was the teaser and it's fully animated. Do you know how much it cost? So yeah, that scene can stay. It's fine. We have the same song, the same beautiful imagery, the same emotional high point. We've all got tears in our eyes. Elsa's got tears in her eyes. She finally found her answers. She knows where she belongs. It's beautiful, but it's also a villain song. Villainous is waiting in the ice cave, and she's like, this was a test. This water horse is the guardian of this magical place and could only be tamed by the true elemental spirit of water. Villainous tells Elsa that she is confirmed to be the spirit of water, and that she, Villainous, is the fifth spirit. It is her job to find all of the spirits and tell them what needs to be done to maintain balance in nature and the universe. And now that Elsa's here, she can help her unite all the spirits. So basically she's telling Elsa that she's gonna be her boss, but Elsa is still riding the high of her beautiful musical number. So she's like, awesome, I finally know my place and my purpose. I love this. Anyway, cut to Anna in the dark cave that the murder canoe has carried her to, and she's being extremely sad. She doesn't know how to get out, and then she sees a flickering light down one of the tunnels, and she thinks it's the way out, so she goes toward it. But it's not the way out. Surprise! It's actually the blue fire lizard. It was just light from his little flickering fire. Yeah, remember the little blue fire lizard? He showed up in like one scene and didn't do anything in terms of the story. Well, here he is. He's back. He's in the cave. Anna sees him, and he just starts going ballistic. He's like trying to attack her, and she's trying to get away because he's made of fire. And at some point, Anna trips, and her fur-lined hat falls off, and the lizard stops trying to attack, and Anna's like, oh, you were just scared of my hat. And then she thinks about it for a minute, and things like click for her, and she's like, wait, no, you're scared of me because I'm dressed like Villainous, and you think I'm her because you're a dumb lizard and you don't understand clothes. There's something off about that lady named Villainous. What could it be? But now Anna befriends the little lizard, and he helps guide her back out of the caves, and she's got to go find Elsa. She has to warn her. She doesn't know of what exactly, but still, you know, something is not what it seems. But when she arrives back at the camp where all the forest people are, the first person she runs into is Villainous. So Anna's on edge, the little lizard is on edge, he's like hiding in her satchel. Then up walks Elsa in her glamorous new white dress and her blown out hair and completely failing to read the room. Anna is like still very angry about being pushed down the hill in the murder canoe, especially because Elsa doesn't seem apologetic about it. But Elsa is just super hyped to tell her about what she's learned, about how cool she is, you know, which I'm sure Anna will take well. Then Villainous sees the lizard in Anna's satchel and is like, that's the spirit of fire. I've been looking all over for him. And she starts coming toward him. Anna gets upset. The lizard gets upset and starts, you know, doing fire. Villainous is acting super calm and not evil, but she's like, Elsa, we need that lizard. I'm glad you're here. You can use your ice powers to contain him. And finally, we can start uniting all these elements like we want to do. Anna is like, Elsa, do not use your ice powers on this lizard. It's the best line in the script. She's also like, Elsa, I think your new friend, Villainous, is hiding something. And Elsa's like, yeah, she was. She's the fifth spirit. Isn't that super neat? Anna reacts negatively to the news, which upsets Elsa. Elsa is trying to explain her truth, which is misguided. Villainous is seeming very chill and well-intentioned, so Anna just seems like a crazy person for not trusting her, and it basically turns into an argument between the two sisters. Elsa tries to use her ice powers to stop both Anna and the lizard from leaving. She's not like attacking them, but you know, she's shooting ice around them. It's not cool. They narrowly escape. Maybe there's a herd of reindeer involved in the escape, so Kristoff can come back from whatever character purgatory he's been banished to. Then, having failed, Villainous is like, you see, Elsa? People fear and distrust what they don't understand. No one will be safe until we can unite all the elements, and Anna is trying to get in the way of that. Meanwhile, Anna is on her way back home with Kristoff and the lizard and Sven, and she's very upset that Elsa chose her new friend and being a water goddess over her family. And then she sends us off with her big song about how she's very sad, but ending with cautious optimism about how she can only keep moving forward and trying to do the right thing. And then she goes back to Arendelle to rule temporarily as Queen Regent, just until she can get Elsa back. which she's determined to do, and she's looking very somber in her dark green velvet dress that's almost black. And the little fire lizard is like her familiar now. She takes it around with her on her shoulder, or she carries it in her hands, but since it's warm, she wears protective gloves, which is like, you know, some kind of cool echo to Elsa being the sad queen with her gloves on. This isn't specified, but I figure that everyone in the kingdom basically assumes that Elsa has died, and Anna just doesn't want to accept it. But Anna needs to find Elsa again someday and convince her that she's on the wrong side. And that's how we leave them. Anna, the queen, the sisters, separated. Elsa, tricked onto the dark side. It's basically just a big emotional cliffhanger. And I know what you're thinking, Jenny, a cliffhanger with a downer ending in a film for children? An animated film whose follow-up we won't get to see for another 6 years? Well, in my concept, Frozen 2 and 3 ideally would have been animated and developed simultaneously, with the plan being to release Frozen 3 1 to 2 years after, so it wouldn't be quite as long of a gap. And to soften the blow, maybe you could even do like an Infinity War thing and have an end card about how the adventure will continue in Frozen 3, and that's how you can announce the sequel. But kids love drama, and I don't think this would upset them. I think it would make them excited for more, and also make them want to like buy a lot of Frozen dolls and speculatively act out what might happen next. Speaking of dolls, Frozen 2 didn't really do anything to bridge the coolness divide between Anna and Elsa. Elsa is the top-selling sister by far, and if anything, Frozen 2 just made her that much cooler while Anna stagnated. I'm of the opinion that the story is better if Anna doesn't get powers, but that is definitely why she's at a disadvantage with kids, and that's also why I thought I'd like throw her a bone and give her the little fire lizard to be like her Pokemon. By Frozen 3, they'll be even more familiar with each other, so they'll be able to jump around and incinerate things together with perfectly refined teamwork, so Anna will be able to hold her own a little better in action scenes. Charmander didn't really serve any function to the story before, so it's a win-win. Anyway, all of this was useless because the movie's out, so it's too late, but I will implement all of my changes when Disney puts me in charge of the Frozen 2 live-action adaptation, premiering on Disney Plus in 2025. So yeah, this might surprise you, but all in all, I actually liked Frozen 2 fine. I liked Olaf being a philosopher in this one instead of just having the same thing going on. I liked Elsa's 2 songs a lot, even though in my opinion, every single other song just sounded like a B-side that should have only been a cut song on the deluxe edition and not one that actually made it into the movie. I really liked all the dazzling action sequences and the fact that both princesses got them pretty equally. They felt like something more out of a Marvel movie than a princess movie, so that was pretty fun. How weird that we have a princess movie like this. I think that's my favorite thing about it, that it's just really weird. A movie this weird would never have happened in the first place if Frozen hadn't been such a giant success at the box office, so that kind of enabled them to think outside the box and take some risks, you know, maybe some misguided risks, but some risks. Yeah, I'll probably go see it a couple more times while it's still in theaters. There's a lot of cool atmosphere and neat visuals, and I like all the characters from Frozen. I just wish they had realized more of the potential that I see within this framework, because I feel like this story has a lot of really good bones, but unfortunately, no skeletons. Oh, also in Frozen 3, the twist is that the reason there's no tangible wind spirit that you can see is that Villainous actually is the wind spirit. She's obviously lying about being the 5th spirit, and that's Elsa, which will be supported by us gradually learning that Elsa can control the other elements, and not just water and ice. And so also, all of the times the wind and the leaves were guiding Elsa on her quest, that was all part of the trap. If we felt like it, we could even say that she caused the storm that sank the parents' ship. It feels a little on the nose, but we could. And obviously the horse actually was the water spirit, and the Villainous just lied. She's keeping Elsa under her thumb, and yeah, it would have been a fun time.